online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. So, our friend Dinesh D'Souza, best-selling author, filmmaker, podcaster, raconteur. He's got a new movie. It's called The Dragon's Prophecy. Yes, it's based on that Jonathan Cahn book. And timely, given maybe, perhaps, although I'm a skeptic, perhaps we're on the precipice of a cessation of hostilities in the Middle East, as per the joint appearance by President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu this week at the White House. Dragon's Prophecy is the name of the film, as I mentioned. And here's the little bit of the trailer.
Then another sign appeared in heaven. An enormous red dragon. Revelation 12:3.
Once again, an armed attack in the Middle East, but this time it's different.
October 7th was the Devil's Holiday.
It's very hard to believe what happened, even though I was there and seeing with my own eyes and seeing them laughing and killing and having fun with it.
Because if you don't open the door, they are going to kill you and they are going to kill me, so please open the door.
So who are the Jews? Who are the Palestinians? And whose land is it really?
Yeah, I mean, that's some of what is being argued, and many of the arguments take the form of ahistorical ones, which contrasts from this film, which makes the moral case for Israel using a biblical angle, comparing the fighting between Israel and Hamas to ancient biblical conflicts between the Israelites and the Philistines. For more on the film and other salient matters, pleased to be joined by Dinesh D'Souza. Dinesh, thanks for being with us again. Appreciate it.
Hey, it's always a pleasure. Great to be here. I'm very excited about this new film. You know, it's a departure from me in the sense that my earlier films have, in one way or another, been about the meaning of America. But here we go beyond the borders. We go beyond the political. There's plenty of politics in the film, but this is also a film about spirituality, about revival, and about biblical archaeology and a hint of biblical prophecy.
Well, you know, before we get into that, you know, there is this argument that many are attempting to make, and it's into a bit of a headwind these days, but it bears some repeating. It used to be sort of accepted as part of conservative thought, but I think that's changed a little bit. And that is that, you know, attacks on Israel in the Middle East by Islamist terrorists are really attacks on America. They're attacks on the West in general, that we are both representatives of Western civilization, that this is a country founded on Judeo-Christian values. And so we have this inextricable link with Israel. But that is much more in controversy on the right than it used to be, wouldn't you say?
Yes, I would. I do think that some of the American adventurism of the past 30 years has made people very allergic to these generic claims that we need to fight over there in order to protect them from coming over here. Now, I do think it holds true in the case of Israel far more than it holds true, for example, for Ukraine, which is far more distant, much less connected to anything that's important to us. The global jihadis are not based in Gaza. In fact, even Hamas is not operating directly out of Gaza. They would not have been able to orchestrate these attacks if they had not been cooked up in places like Sudan and Yemen and Turkey and Iran. So there is a much larger jihadi movement here, and Hamas is its tool. So all of this is kind of exposed in the film. But the film then goes on to ask much larger questions like, who are the original inhabitants of this land? Think about it. How do you get a piece of land in the world anywhere at all? You either get it because you were there first, or you get it by some sort of negotiation or treaty, or you get it by conquest. And the remarkable thing is, Israel checks all three boxes. The Jews were there first, going back to the time of David, perhaps even further back to Abraham, 4,000 years ago. The Jews got it by treaty from the United Nations after World War II, and the Jews have fought three wars, 48, 67, and 73, so they have held the land by conquest. So they have the strongest title of any group to that land compared to any other title anywhere else in the world, including the United States of America.
Right, and so the feeling, of course, is that we've been on this hamster wheel for at least the last 50 years. I mean, maybe going back to 1948. And I guess the question is, taking a much more expansive look like you do in this film, what can we learn additionally about, what the last 60 years have been and where we are today?
I think one of the things we're realizing, and Charlie Kirk's assassination has highlighted this, is that underneath our political wars is a moral struggle, and underneath that is a spiritual war. But people who say that don't often specify, like, who's fighting, who are the combatants, what are they fighting over, what is the stake. And we introduced the rather outrageous idea that the fight is really, you can say between good and evil, but I would say even more directly between God and the devil. So when I use the phrase the dragon's prophecy, the dragon, which is an image out of the book of Revelation, is a reference to the devil himself. Now, the idea here is this: the devil can never defeat God. And so what the devil does is he picks on the things that are important to God and tries to ruin them to get his revenge on God. So in Genesis 1, like, why does the devil pick on Adam and Eve? Like, what have they done to him? Nothing, but they are God's cherished creation. So he's like, let me ruin them and I'll get a last laugh on God. And so the question to think about, and it's posed as a question, is it the case that because the Jews are, quote, the chosen people of God, therefore the devil goes, let me ruin the Jews. Let me run them out of Israel from the river to the sea. Let me take their most holy place, which is the site of the Solomonic temple, and let me stick an Islamic victory arch on top of that called the Dome of the Rock and have an adjoining mosque right there. So it's almost like the devil is occupying the holiest site of Judaism and Christianity. So all these like rich and provocative ideas are in the film, and then I authenticate the Bible with biblical archaeology, showing I'm not trying to prove the miracles or vindicate the theology of the Bible, but I want to defend its historicity and show that the people and events of the Bible are true and they're real.
And so what's your handle on the prospects for some sort of lasting détente in the Middle East, given this dynamic you're describing?
Well, I think that I'm constantly amazed at the audacity of Trump. He will say something that on the face of it seems downright absurd. Gaza should be a Riviera.
Yes.
And everybody goes, what an idiot. How can he say something so preposterous? But really, Trump is a construction guy. He looks at the place, it's full of rubble. And he goes, I kind of see, buildings here and streets and clean apartments and people going to work every day and safe streets. Why can't we at least offer them that? They may not take it. They may be so twisted and so indoctrinated and so much the product of this hateful ideology that they may refuse that road, even though it's quite obviously a better road for their children and grandchildren. So Trump, I think, is creating a framework. But, I think the roots of this go deep. And as I said, the global jihadi ideology, look, this is not even confined to the Middle East. They're trying to infiltrate Australia and Canada and Europe. Here in Texas, where I live, mosques seem to be coming up overnight. You've got these Islamists who are running for school boards. They want to make 100 Ilhan Omars. So they are on the march globally. And Israel, I think, is rightly the little Satan in the picture. We, the United States, are quite definitely the big Satan, and the jihadis understand it.
Yeah, I mean, Dearborn, Michigan, Hamtramck, Michigan, and also too. I mean, Africa. We don't talk about this as much as perhaps we should, but the slaughter of Christians going on in Nigeria, in Congo. I mean, in terms of the global jihadists.
And the reason for that is that the Muslims really have only one way of multiplying, and that is having 7 kids. But the Christians are the ones who are actually making the conversions. And so you have these African countries that are like 40% Muslim, 40% Christian. It's going to go one way or the other way. And the Muslims are like, we got to stop it. We got to use beheading. We got to get these Christians because we don't think the world will take notice. And incredibly, the West has been blind and deaf and looking the other way and focused on the Israeli genocide in Gaza and not paying attention to the Islamic genocide everywhere else.
Now, I saw that you posted on X some of the criticism you're receiving, and the sort of conspiracies that you're the target of, suggesting that you're on the payroll of Israel, or you're so some sort of like secret Zionist or something like this in terms of the basis to do this film. What's your response to those who are suggesting that you're compromised, you're a tool of the Jewish lobby, as a favorite phrase, that sort of thing?
Well, when Ben Shapiro or Laura Loomer, or one of these people, Josh Hammer, talks about Israel, we see these voices on the right basically go, well, yeah, you're a Jew. That's why you're saying that. This kind of discourse was unacceptable a generation ago, but it's evidently becoming more acceptable. Now, I'm not a Jew. I'm a Christian. I'm America first. I don't have any dog in this fight. I've never made a movie here. I haven't even really addressed the Israel issue before. I became enchanted with biblical archaeology about 3 years ago, and so we've donated hundreds of thousands of dollars to biblical archaeology in Jerusalem. So, I'm not on Israel's payroll. You could say, be more accurate to say Israel is on my payroll. So because I have this kind of independence and credibility, these guys are going after me, trying to insinuate that I'm sort of in the pay of Mossad. Nothing could be more preposterous, and I think it just shows why the film is powerful, and this kind of anti-Semitic wing that's emerging on the right is afraid of it. And so their idea is, let's try to throw some mud at Dinesh and make it seem that he's compromised in some way, which is obviously not the case.
Yeah. What is your threat assessment on that anti-Semitic wing that is emerging on the right, as you mentioned? I mean, some have very big followings, some and inexplicably to me, frankly, a few of them I understand, a few of them I don't. But there are brand names within conservative circles.
Well, it's or normally I would dismiss it as a kind of weird eccentricity. People who, like Tucker, built his reputation on Fox News for taking on the Fox people, for being politically incorrect, for speaking out on so many issues. And I'm an admirer of that Tucker. But now he's sort of veered into this new lane. I think what's happened is we've got a lot of young people today who are restless, who are angry, who are desperate, who don't see a life for themselves as good as their parents did. And these people are seething. And I think what's particularly insidious is that there are people on our side that are using this angst to blame the Jews. And they're not even doing it directly. They're doing it more in the form of, quote, I'm asking questions, or in the case of Candace, I'm conducting a personal investigation.
Yeah.
The investigation is always bogus. It never produces a single reliable fact or arrive at any conclusion. And the moment that the premise is sunk, a new insinuation takes its place. So I'm very disturbed. People I know, by the way, I've spoken at Candace's events. Tucker and I did a speaking tour last year together in Australia. So this is awkward for me. But on the other hand, I don't want to be the guy who keeps silent about it. I think it could actually cause a lot of harm, not just to the country, not just making Jews feel unsafe in this country, but also fracturing the MAGA coalition and hurting the Trump agenda.
Yeah, I'm in a complete agreement with you, and I've addressed it as well. And I mean, I love Dennis Prager of his many formulations. The people who use the term "the Jews." Dennis Prager saying, I'm a Jew, George Soros is a Jew, we have nothing in common. There isn't the Jews. And you would think conservatives would start from that premise of looking at the individual as the unit of analysis and the belief system and not categorizing people by identity. That's what the left does, which is why I find the arguments being made, in addition to being, evidence-free and conspiracy-based, so flimsy and unworthy.
And Dan, you can apply that exact same logic to Jesus, right? The Jews killed Christ. Well, Caiaphas and the high priests were instrumental in all that, but Jesus had a lot of followers. And what did the followers do? They took up the cause after his death. They're the ones who made the first converts. They're the ones who went, even when Paul, who was the apostle to the Gentiles, went to Greece and Asia Minor, he was mainly preaching in synagogues. So these were the first Judeo-Christians, if you can use that term.
Right.
Hey, Dan, if I can say so, the website is thedragonsprophecyfilm.com. The movie's in theaters next week, October 6th and 8th, streaming October 9th. But you got to get the theater tickets from the website. So it's thedragonsprophecyfilm.com.
Dinesh D'Souza, he is an acclaimed filmmaker, New York Times bestselling author. The new film, The Dragon's Prophecy, the website again, thedragonsprophecyfilm.com, thedragonsprophecyfilm.com. Limited release in theaters October 6th and 8th, then streaming on Salem Now, at Salem Now on October 9th. TheDragonsProphecyFilm.com for tickets. Dinesh, thanks as always. Appreciate it.
Hey, it's a pleasure. Thank you.
And Dinesh joined us on the Turnkey.pro answer line.
There's only one radio show in Chicago talking about today's biggest stories and telling you what they really mean. That show is this one, Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
The anniversary of Israel's October 7th, 2023 terrorist attack is now upon us.